Are we live? All right, great.
I think we're live.
We are live. All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Genevieve Antono, and I am the PreLaw Program Director at MsJD. MsJD is a nonprofit committed to the success of women in the legal profession, and I'm super excited for episode 2 of our MsJD PreLaw Mentoring Hangouts. So in these Hangouts, we bring together legal professionals and pre-law students, and the goal is just to provide a space where conversations can happen. So today's episode is going to be about being a pre-law leader on campus, and I'm really excited because our 3 guests today are experts at that. Erin is currently a MsJD board member, and when she was in law school, she was the president of both the Women in Law and the Student Bar Association. Margaret is the co-president of the Columbia Pre-Law Society at Columbia University, and Moniel is president of the Pre-Law Black Law Student Association at Indiana University, Bloomington. So I'm really excited to hear from them and learn from all of you today. So let's kind of go into self-introductions. I've kind of given the high-level introduction, but if you could kind of tell us more about yourselves and also more about the organizations that you lead. Who wants to start?
Okay, I'll start. My name is Moniel Sanders. I attend the Indiana University Bloomington. Here at Indiana University, I am a part of the Pre-Law Black Law Student Association. I'm president, and I'm also the media editor for the Law and Public Policy team and the School of Public and Environmental Affairs. Here at Indiana University, I'm a media industry management and policy major, and then I also minor in law and public policy. My aspirations are to be entertainment law intellectual property lawyer. They kind of both intertwine, so I'm walking the fine line. I don't have to decide yet, so I study both of them. And in my spare time, I like to read. I love to read. Rom-coms are my favorite. Yes, I think that's about it.
All right, great. Margaret, do you want to go next?
Yeah, definitely. So I'm Margaret. I'm a junior at Columbia College, Columbia University. I study political science and business management. And on campus, I'm involved in several organizations, including Columbia Pre-Law Society. I'm currently the co-president of that club. And we are one of the largest pre-professional clubs on campus. And we provide tons of resources, opportunities, and events for pre-law students. We have lawyers come, we have judges and other legal professionals, and it's a great opportunity for students just to learn from them and network with them as well. I'm interested in corporate law, so definitely I can talk a bit more about that on our panel as well.
Great, thank you, Margaret. And Erin?
Yeah, thank you all so much again for joining us today. So my name is Erin Callahan. Currently, I'm a board member for MsJD, and I went to undergrad at Washington University in St. Louis, and I went to law school at SMU Dedman School of Law in Dallas, Texas. And when I was in law school, I was president of Women in Law and also our Student Bar Association. And then after law school, I served on the Dallas Women Lawyers Association board. And then I moved to Houston recently, not too long ago. I've been getting involved here in Houston and also still serve on the MsJD board. And as far as my career, I've been in insurance most of my career, except for recently. Starting on Monday, I go into private practice, and I'm going to work for a small firm in Houston, Texas. So.
That's super cool. Do you want to tell us more about the Women in Law and the Bar Student Association Student Bar Association that you were leading, Erin?
Yeah, so absolutely. So at SMU when I was there, one of the things that I really loved about the campus is we were more of a community, and we had a really good positive environment in law school, and it wasn't as competitive, I think, as some schools can be. And so that really created the environment where I got involved. And even our first year, I had SBA mentors that really coached me and helped me and were there for me. And that instilled the interest in me kind of giving back to the community and giving back to our students and really wanting to connect with them and do as much as I personally could on campus. So I think that as much as we all have well laid out plans, sometimes things don't work the way we want them to, or other things pop up. I never planned to be both Women in Law president and the SBA president, so that was interesting. But it ended up happening, and I went for it, and it was a phenomenal year, and it's actually how I got introduced to MsJD. So my last year, I wanted to. I was looking for something that myself as the outgoing president and the incoming president of Women in Law could do together to bond and get new skills to bring back to campus for our organization. And I just went to Googling online, and I found the MsJD conference in LA, and everything else is history.
And I love that you mentioned that the MsJD conference is in LA, because this year we're also having a MsJD conference in LA.
Yes, very exciting. It's full circle, that's for sure.
Yeah. So for all the listeners, ms-jd.org, you're going to have more details about the conference there. And to introduce myself, I'm Jeannie. I am, like I said, the PreLaw program director at MsJD. And once upon a time on campus, I was also president of the Columbia PreLaw Society, which Margaret is a part of. And I was founder of the Corporate Law Mentoring Circle at Columbia University. And Margaret was actually one of my mentees. She was a freshman when I was running that circle. So again, that's amazing. Things coming full circle. And
full circle.
All right. So first question for the panel. So how did you obtain the leadership positions in your clubs? So, there are a lot of very enthusiastic, very kind of, keen students, in every single campus, and there are only so many positions, president positions available. So what was your path to becoming president of your clubs? Because I'm sure our listeners can, gain inspiration and maybe some tactical tips on how to become a leader on campus.
Well, I can start out. That's actually an interesting story. I was telling Jenny about this yesterday. I was cleaning through my house and just getting organized to start a new job. And I found this list that I had made in 2011. It's on the back of a friend's baby shower invitation. And I had several pre-law students come up to me and ask me, we're going to start law school in the fall. What is your advice? And I wrote down 6 things. I'll even show you the list because I'm not exaggerating. It is on the back of a baby shower invitation. This is the real deal, ladies. But these are the 6 tips that I gave them. And I truly believe this is how you can be a successful leader and, be involved in a campus and make a difference. So number 1 is befriend everyone. Don't have any enemies. Number 2 is always include outsiders, make them feel included and welcome. They need you. Number 3 is don't get caught up in the drama, take the blame, apologize, and move on. It's always easier. Number 4, do what's best for the organization, not what you or any of the officers personally think is best. 5, be professional, dress for the job you want, never wear sweats or PJs to school. I know we're all guilty of it, but in law school, you want to set that impression. It's not the same as undergrad. And the last one is network like you've never networked before. And then I think probably one I would add that I've learned in my life is just be authentic, be who you are. And that's what will let you kind of rise up and shine in your own light.
Thank you, Erin. So how about your path to, I guess, becoming president of both the Women in Law and the SBA at your law school? How did you use these tips? I guess, or was there an election? What was the path, I guess?
Yeah, so there absolutely was election. So first year, I was not necessarily involved. I did go to law school in the evening. So I had 4 years, which is a little bit different. But my first year, I just, put my head down and work, which I recommend for most students. You do want to make sure you go to some networking events and get out there. And, I always say try to pick the most impactful events, so that you can keep visible, start building your network, connecting with people. But that's not going to be your main focus that first year. Then, so the second year I got involved with the SBA mentor program. I wanted to give back. I wanted to be a mentor. And so that's kind of where it started. And I was also on I can't remember the exact title. It was like the charity aspect of the SBA. I think we had a charitable committee. And so I was involved in those two organizations or those two committees. And then my next year, I also served, the second year on the Women in Law board. I think I was like the evening school liaison, if I remember correctly. And then my third year, I went for president of Women in Law, and there was an election, and I did win the election. And then my last year, my fourth year, since I was in evening school, was I was Women in Law president. And, at the time, there wasn't really anybody that was interested or passionate about stepping up to be president. So I decided to continue to stay on board as president. And then, long story short, I had a friend reach out to me and ask me if I wanted to run for SBA president. And I said, no, I don't think that's really for me. I have women in law, I'm good. And he asked me to really take it seriously. And he said, you're one of the few people on campus that's, really well respected. And I think that we could have a really big impact together. And I thought about it, and he convinced me. And so I decided to run for SBA president and kind of use my position as SBA president to funnel more money and funds equally across the organizations. We had a little bit of an issue with that. And so that was really my main goal, was just making sure that there was kind of representation from all the different organizations and doing a lot of joint events with orgs that might not have big budgets or, a full board. And so those are really my focuses for our last year. I was very involved on the main SMU campus in that respect as well. We also had several lieutenants from the SBA that served on the main campus boards. And so we tried to just, learn as much as we can and then pass it on to the next group. And there was an election for SBA president, and I did win that as well.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I don't know how you managed to do a law school plus be president of two huge clubs. Because I think Margaret and I have chatted about this a little bit, but in our experience being like president of Columbia PreLaw, it's like a full-time job.
Yes,
very much so.
It was a full-time job, and I worked the first semester too.
Yeah.
Which is a little crazy, but no, I mean, it's kind of like being a young associate. I mean, you learn how to multitask, you learn how to be effective and work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, definitely. Moniel, do you want to go next? What was your path to becoming president of your organization?
I have been a part of, can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I have been a part of PreLaw Black Law Student Association since my freshman year. I started out and there were maybe 5 of us consistently. So we took all the work onto our backs as far as programming, as far as reaching out, making flyers, making our presence known. And I was a big part in that because I always knew I wanted to be a lawyer, so there was nothing else for me to do. And then sophomore year, I became secretary through elections. By then, we had a consistent 10 members. So I did the elections, and I was still a big part. We programmed even more. We brought in panelists. We reached out. We worked very hard. And then here, junior year, I was elected as president. It was a hard battle won. It really was, because we had great candidates, and I wanted us all to win. But I won that through elections, and here we're still programming. We're at a consistent 15 members, and we're just growing our presence even more.
That's great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Margaret, do you want to go next?
Yeah, definitely. So I totally agree with Erin's tips, and I really enjoyed hearing both Erin and Moniel's path to leadership. So my leadership experience, very similarly, I started, as a general body, and then through elections, I got elected to become treasurer last year, and now I got elected to become co-president. And throughout this whole process, I really can't emphasize enough the importance of showing up. I know in these past 3 years, I've been to, 30 pre-law events, consistently showing up, networking with the pre-law leaders. And I encourage everyone who's tuning in right now or tuning in later, if they haven't already, to check out the first MsJD Mentoring Google Hangouts, where they talk about networking, because networking can be very enjoyable. It's simply, meeting new people, learning from them. And I firmly believe you can learn from anybody, no matter their profession, race, gender, etc. And especially for pre-law students, you have a lot to learn from other pre-law students, from pre-law leaders, lawyers, other professionals. So that's what I did: show up, network. And then once I got elected to my positions, once I was a board member, working hard, right? I mean, these aren't, very hard concepts, but hard to execute. So not only do you have to be enthusiastic and keen, like Jeannie said earlier, but following through, and being committed, dedicated, responsible. And I think that's the formula. So I've so enjoyed my time being co-president of PreLaw Society.
I definitely agree. I think that showing up and kind of doing good work is so key. And I think, that was my experience as well. Kind of like, if you are out there being a leader, whatever your title is, when it's time for elections, people will recognize you for that. But also in my experience as a leader, kind of seeing the next generation of kind of like students in the club, I'm inclined to give more work to people who actually do good work. It's like, if it's easy to work with you, I will give you more. And the more work you have, the more opportunities you have to kind of like show off. And then other people will also start recognizing you as a leader. So I think we're all coming up with similar consistent themes here: showing up, doing good work, and also not being shy to kind of promote yourself. I think that's key.
Yeah. And I just, I might add, earlier I mentioned I was interested in corporate law. And so my freshman year, when Jeannie was the president of Columbia PreLaw Society, she started a new initiative called Corporate Mentoring Circle. When I saw that opportunity, I jumped on it, right? So I immediately applied. I emailed Jeannie, got in, showed up, consistently participated, learned a ton, and so it was a very natural process and enjoyable process.
Great. Thank you, Margaret. You're like a joy to teach and mentor, so it helps. All right. So
I do want to add one thing really quick. We've all talked about our successes, but I think something that's really important to talk about is failure. And not so much failing, because we all will fail, but how fast you stand back up. And even though there were these successes that I've had, there's been a lot of failure too. And to be okay with that and understand that that's part of the learning process and part of the journey into your career, and that no matter where you are, if you don't win that election, stand back up and go for another election, go for something else, get involved, start an initiative. If you are in that election and you lose, let's say you're running for president, you call that president and be like, how can I help? Because at the end of the day, it's about the organization and you and your growth. It's not about a title. And so the best piece of advice I would give is embrace your failure, stand back up and go right back out there with a smile on your face and do it again.
Agreed. I mean, for me, like, people might kind of look at my LinkedIn or whatever and be like, oh, there are a lot of successes here. But for every success that I have, I failed so many more times. I've got rejected from so many times. But like you said, standing back up quickly. I always have a few plans going on, plan A, B, C, so that if one fails, I still have a couple other plans going on. But definitely, I think being okay with failure is key.
And for me, the first... Go ahead.
Because if you're not putting yourself in a position to fail, you're not, pushing yourself or reaching beyond your comfort zone. So it's like when you reach beyond your comfort zone, that's when the chances of failure is higher. But if you make it, then you've grown that much more.
Exactly. And, I always, when we talk about failure, I like to give one as an example, because I think it's not just to say, oh, I failed. No, I have failed. And so I'm going to share one of my, failures. And, the first time I took the LSAT, I did not do well in it. And I'm not talking about, a score that's not where you want it to be. I'm talking about a score that wouldn't get me into law school. And so I studied again and again and again and practice and practice and practice. And I raised my score significantly. And that is something that I think is important. So I don't know if maybe Jenny, do we have the time for everyone to share a failure too? I don't know.
Yeah, so let's go until like 12:45.
Okay.
Would that be good with everyone on the panel?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's good.
Because I think it's important to show everybody that it's not just the successes.
Yeah, so does anyone want to go first, or I can go next? So
I have a little bit. You can go ahead.
Yeah, so two things come to mind. First, I immigrated to the United States probably about 6 years ago, and I came to the US with a degree from Hong Kong. But, I could not find a job because of my foreign qualifications or whatever. And it was just kind of like applying for job after job, getting rejected, just hundreds of rejections. And then I decided to go for my next best option, which was go back to undergrad. And so that was kind of like, I already had a degree, and then it's like, oh, and I'm going back to undergrad. And I was like, 23, 24 at the time, going back to undergrad and going to class with these 18-year-olds, and being new to this country and trying to adapt. But that's what I did. And I again took the time at Columbia to make use of all the opportunities. And and through that failure, I now have, opportunities I wouldn't otherwise have if I had kind of gone straight through for a job when I first immigrated. So there's that.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. That takes a lot of time and effort to do something completely over again, but it seems like you saw the benefits that would come from it. It seems to be a great decision for you, even though I'm sure it was lots of failures and struggles along the way.
Yeah, I think moving to a new country is always tough,
right.
And you got to do what you got to do. Yeah.
Well, I can go next. We have a huge lawyer here in Indiana. His name's Ken Nunn. He specializes in malpractice and injury law, and also a little bit in labor law. And he had open positions for undergraduate clerks to come and to get a feel of law experience and to enhance their skills and network. So I applied, and I was denied. Along with a couple of other of my colleagues, we were all denied, and we were very hopeful in it because he asked for little to no knowledge of law experience, but efficient skills in Microsoft Excel and Microsoft Word. And that's a skill that I had, and I was so confident. I was telling everyone, I'm going to work with Ken Nunn. He's the largest lawyer in Indiana, and things like this. And then I was denied, and I cried about it. But it's okay, because like you said, I put myself out there. I, strive for the stars, and then if I fall in the clouds, it's fine. So that was
I love it. I love that. That's awesome. That's a great story. So you're going to keep applying, right?
Yes, I'm going to keep applying.
Good.
Yeah, so I can go next. So this happened recently. So last year when I was looking, I'm currently a junior. So last year when I was a sophomore, I was looking for a sophomore internship. I was looking particularly for legal internships since I'm a pre-law student, very interested in this field. But large corporate law firms, they do not regularly hire summer undergraduate interns, let alone, law students. Very competitive. So I also looked into other alternatives, such as Columbia's CEO program. Columbia has something called Columbia Experience Overseas. And it's this amazing program where a variety of fields, and there are a few legal positions. So there were positions at law firms that I was interested in, and I thought I was a very strong applicant because I have a demonstrated interest in law. I have leadership positions here. I thought my resume was strong, but unfortunately, to my surprise, I didn't get those positions. So after that, because I really wanted to have some work experience for the sophomore summer, I, doubled my efforts at networking, at showing up to pre-law events, but also, since I'm interested in corporate law, changing my strategy, right? So I know end goal, I want to go to law school, I want to work in corporate law, but corporate law is business law, right? So I think it'd be best to have some business experience as well. So since I've encountered some failures looking for legal internships or internships at law firms, then I will look for business internships. So went to business events, which I haven't done a lot of. I'm part of Columbia Women's Business Society here, but haven't, since I'm more focused on law, didn't go to too many of those events. Started going out to more of those, found a great internship this past summer working at a large music publishing company where even though my position was in corporate development, I pestered the lawyer and asked him tons of questions and told him that I'd be willing to help out with, you know, anything that he might be backlogged on or anything. So I did get to work on I did get to help him out, work on some transfer pricing documents and all of that. So through that, I think, reiterating what I said earlier, working hard, especially in the face of failure, right? So not, you know, being down about that, perhaps, you know, not changing your strategy, but widening, you know, your field of what you're interested in. And yeah, just being positive and all work out in the end.
I think so. I think
Awesome.
a lot of like being successful is just kind of, you know, just keeping at it through failure, right? And
exactly.
And like changing your strategy. So I love that. And now you're going into investment banking next summer.
Yes, which is something that I did not, you know, realize that I was interested in freshman year, but through this experience of talking to a lot of business professionals, people in the finance field, there's a lot of interaction. There's a lot of intersection between what investment bankers do and corporate lawyers. They work on the same deals, except just different parts of the deal. So I think it'll be a great, amazing learning experience for me this summer, where I get to learn about the, you know, more the beginning parts of a transaction. And through, you know, networking and the corporate law mentoring circle, I've already heard a lot about the end of that transaction. And so piecing all of that together, I think will really give me a comprehensive understanding. And I think that'll really benefit me wherever I end up in the years to come.
I love it.
Well, thank y'all all so much for humoring me and sharing your failures. I know I kind of put y'all on the spot, but I think, you know, it just helps us be authentic and show everyone that it's just, you know, it's not all those wins, it's all the losses that, you know, got us to that one win. So thank you.
Yeah. So my next prepared question also has to do with challenges, but challenges within kind of your experience of leading your club. So what has been the hardest part about leading your student clubs, and what like strategies have you used to face those challenges? This is like open, intentionally open.
I can answer that. So, as I said, Balsa began very, very small. And we had not had a lot of networking opportunities outside of Indiana. So this semester, or last semester, fall, I know it was very important to get us to some PreLaw conferences, some PreLaw networking opportunities outside of Indiana. So we attended a diversity PreLaw conference in New York. And let me tell you, it was the most stressful thing I've ever planned in my life. I never knew calling hotels and figure out transportation, budgeting for food, making sure everyone was 18 and older. That was something I never thought about. They have to have permission slips, even on college campuses, if they're 18 or less. So just being a leader and stepping outside of my comfort zone while having people behind me relying on me was something that was very, very hard. And I had to learn to delegate to people that I trusted, because I don't like giving other people responsibilities, because I know that I can get it done. If I have to stay up till 2 a.m. to 3 a.m., it's just what has to be done. But then I was slipping in other aspects because I was pressing so hard for my organization and getting us to this conference. So in the end, we ended up getting grants and getting funds, but it was only after I asked someone else, like, I need help doing this. I can't do this alone. So we partnered together and we took that stride on together. And it was about me giving off responsibilities to someone else that I trust. So I feel like that's the hardest part of me being a leader here.
I love that. And I love the bit about, learning to delegate, because that's also something that I've had to to learn myself, and definitely being a leader on a board. At first, you may be very tempted to kind of like take it all on yourself, but then you also realize it's also important to allocate work, not only for yourself to kind of take things off your plate, but also to give people opportunities to grow, right? Giving them thoughtful assignments. So that's key. Yeah.
Yeah. I can go next. So one of the hardest parts of being Columbia Pre-Law Society, I would say, is communication. We have a very large board, almost 17 people. And so that's just our board members. And so we have hundreds of general body members. So effectively communicating within the board and to our general body members can sometimes be difficult. So strategies to deal with this problem, I would say, is utilizing tools. So recently we started using an app called Slack, which is a great communication tool. And so relying on tools, relying on others, right? So delegating communication, and relying on our vice president to see, to check in, to do, monthly check-ins. How are our committees doing? Making sure that happens and everything's on track. And I would say, yeah, so I think, and being available. I think being available, let your board members and your general body members know that you're available, if they have any concerns, questions, if they just want to reach out, and that you're accessible to them. And so just emphasizing that.
That's great. Erin, do you want to share anything?
Yeah, so those are some great tips. So, for us, I would say, even MsJD, we struggle with the same thing. So communication is always really important. And we use Slack too. So
yes,
especially, during events and stuff when we're all, going back and forth. But, for us, I think communication is the most important thing, especially in a large group, a large organization, whether it's, Women in Law, SBA, MsJD, or even just, with work. And one thing that I really always try to do is just keep myself, up on leadership. And what I mean by that is, I'm always trying to read, new books and old books, and, just kind of make sure that I'm doing that self-development and making sure that I'm continuing to be focused on it. For me, this doesn't work for everyone. And I think everyone has their own process path, to, running an organization, but I schedule everything, because for me, if it doesn't get scheduled, it doesn't get done. And so, if I schedule, I'm more likely to get, 10 things done instead of, 4. And so for the organization, I would just often make sure that everything, is on my calendar and scheduled. I schedule self-care time, everything. And so I think that's really it for this one. Y'all have touched on a lot of things that I think are the most important, which is really delegation and communication. I think those are just the two most important things.
Yeah, and both are key to managing people, which is always the hardest, right? It's when, making the plan that is logical and clear is usually not the hard part. It's usually getting the people together to kind of execute that together. That's where the challenges come in. But we grow with time. I think when I was earlier in my leadership roles, I was a lot more impatient. I'm always like waking up with an idea. I'm like, I want to do this now, right? and it's like, quite now in hindsight, unreasonable to expect everyone to kind of just follow along at that pace, because people have lives, they have other priorities. But I think at the beginning of my role, I didn't quite feel that way. I was like, I'm president, I've got a great plan, let's go. But I think over time I've kind of like learned to be a better manager. So
and you have to be a motivator too.
Right.
You touched on that just a little bit about being impatient, things like that. You have to motivate the team. They do emulate what you do as president. So if you're there giving 150%, more likely they're going to be there giving the same. But if you're giving 10%, you're going to have a hard time, motivating everybody. And so I think that goes back to, I think it was Margaret that said, show up, like, work hard, focus on those things. And I think that's part of leadership, that your colleagues will get motivated by your motivation and your hard work.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so we have about 4 minutes left. I'm gonna I'm gonna let Margaret and Moniel ask Erin any questions. Just any topic about law and pre-law.
I have a question for Erin. So you were, such an amazing leader at your law school, and so how have you leveraged your leadership experiences for your legal career, if that makes sense? So how have you leveraged your leadership experience to advance your career?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about setting precedents, right? And kind of keeping and continuing to do what you did in law school. So for me, it's continuing to network and build that network and continue to touch your network. And I'm not always that great at it sometimes, to be honest. It's something I have to continually to work on. You build this network in law school. I always say it's a marathon. It's not a race. It's a lifelong skill that you have to continue to do. For me, I just moved to Houston, and that's been a challenge because that fabulous network that I have in Dallas, just isn't in Houston, and I have to start from scratch again. But it's really kind of an important lesson that you really can't ever let go of your network that you start building in undergrad and law school. And so I would just say you have to continue to network and network and network. And that's really your leverage is, building on your reputation. And you'll have failures and you'll have busy periods. Once you become a parent, then things, you might blog instead of an officer position, or then once the kids end up back in school, then maybe you take another leadership role, and I know a lot of friends that have continued to do everything. They're definitely Wonder Woman, but I think you just have to continue to build on what you've started. It's a marathon, and that's really the leverage that's there, is just that skill set that you're acquiring right now and learning how to network, connect with people, showing up. You just continue to build on that for the rest of your career.
Thank you.
Okay, so I have a question. Sometimes I feel as if my club experience and my organization experience doesn't quite transfer to me being able to portray that I'm fit for a job.
Right.
So how do I portray that, and how do I express that I am fit?
Yeah. So I think a couple ways. So one thing I think that's really important is authenticity. And if this is something that you're passionate about, kind of own that club and ownership experience. Not all employers see value in that, and that's just the truth, and that's not going to change. But you just have to keep being yourself and continue to talk about your experiences in the interview. So say, for example, you obviously want to put it on your resume, one, and then two, you might want to think about some of the big successes that you've had and how those transfer into skill sets. Okay. So I'm trying to think of a good example. So maybe if you recently ran the meeting and you spoke on a panel or something, you could talk about public speaking and how that might set you apart, or at least focus that on your resume. And then if you have a chance to add any additional resumes or like cover letters, those are things you really want to talk about in the cover letter. That's really going to be your opportunity to shine. And so I would list your club experience on the resume, put it in your cover letter, and then you want to talk about it in the interview as well. If they ask you, questions, situational questions, you want to use your experience that you've had, whether it's public speaking or whether it's, being an actual leader, that there's a lot of value in that. Because if you're a leader in school, you're going to be a leader in the work environment, and not being afraid to continue to learn and, to grow. I think those are all things that we do as leaders that are important, for job interviews. And then probably trying to think, the best thing for you to do is think of a couple of situations that you've experienced as an officer and try to bring up those situations in the interview so that you can highlight that experience to the best of your ability.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I add a couple more tips?
Please do.
All right. So quantify your achievements. So for me, it's like when I was president of the Columbia Pre-Law Society, we started off having about 5-6 events a year. I grew that to about close to 20 events a year. And
That's
I
amazing.
grew our Facebook group from about 200 over members to over 1,000. So having those numbers and putting those in your resume, just as you would any other achievement in any other job, is helpful. And then also think about make a list of transferable skills, like teamwork. Working on a team is so crucial to any job that you're in. The fact that you can, you've led a team, you've worked on a team, work through conflict, and still be able to achieve the organization's goals. Those are all transferable skills, and kind of figuring out what employers want, what you have, and kind of expressing that, I think, is pretty key.
Okay.
Yeah, Jenny, you're so awesome. But yeah, I think those are all really good points too, Jenny. Thank you so much for adding those in.
Thank you.
All right, so we are out of time, but thank you so much for participating in today's Hangout. I will see all of you guys, online and off, and watch episode 3 coming soon in a couple of weeks.
Thank y'all all
right,
so much.
thank you.
Have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Bye.
Bye.